The Partial Breakaway Podcast with your hosts Nick and Junior and producer Vince, bringing you elite fantasy hockey information to help you win your fantasy leagues and win at life.
Episode 39, Season 2, Episode 2.
See what happens when you try to do too many things? I'm just saying.
But, I mean, you could have done something, you know?
But it's like you took over the soundboard.
I took over.
Jesus, Murphy.
Guys, how are we feeling after the 4-hour marathon?
I'm still tired. Yeah, I'm still tired.
I feel like we're still recording from last week.
It was really, really long.
Yeah, I think we'll make some adjustments. I don't think we'll do the whole draft next year.
You know what? Top 20 would have been fine.
Top 20? Yeah, 20.
Because I really started dragging after that. Like, we started losing momentum.
Well, we started getting tired.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You started losing momentum after the 20th, I find.
Yeah.
Like, Montreal's pick was 21, and then after that, it was like, meh. So,
yeah. Even the players being selected were not necessarily
fantasy relevant for
right?
this year coming, right?
Yeah, some of them were also like defensive players, third line centers.
Well,
more of stay-home defensemen.
Right. I wanted to mention that this is season 2, by the way. And to my left here, I have Junior, co-host Junior. To my right, producer Vince. And I myself am Nick. So we got a lot of reactions to some of the clips that we posted. Junior got some really good reactions and some real big hate.
Yeah, well, should we start with one of the comments that like kind of puts everything into perspective, and then I'll have one final say on number one defenseman, and we'll move on.
Okay, do you want me to read the respectful good comment that we got, or do you want to read the other one that said that we should stick to our day jobs?
But by the way, by that, whoever wrote that, I'm just here to clarify that myself and Nick were against what Junior was saying.
We did not agree with Junior.
We did not agree with what Junior was saying.
But I still respect his take.
But hey, listen, we definitely do have day jobs. I mean, you got to pay the bills.
Well, like I replied to one of them, I did say, luckily, we did not quit our day jobs. But yeah, look, it's a take. It's an opinion. Everyone has different opinions. But at the end of the day, I'll get to it. But at the end of the day, I'll get to it. I don't want to just spoil what I wanted to say. So
all
I'll
right,
let you go.
So here's a response that we got from @AlexStevens8587. And he basically was saying that I respect the point. You're saying that a number one defender must be a jack of all trades, not just an offensive defenseman or a shutdown defenseman. Hughie, meaning Hughes, Quinn Hughes, struggled at times without a proper partner, like Hronek, because he needs support on the defensive side of the game. I'm a Canucks fan, he says. And even I admit it's foolish to say that Hronek wasn't a huge reason why Huggies, or Quinn Hughes, plus minus was so much better this year as opposed to Luke Schenn being his partner. But my understanding is what you're saying, that an elite defender is only as good as their partner, whereas a number one defender is more independent. For example, Bouchard has Ekholm, Makar has Taves. But maybe Makar less so, because Makar has admitted that Taves elevates his game. So he's saying that maybe add that to your argument, because their partner plays a big role in how good they are, right? I'm just going to skip a little bit, not too much. But he basically said, like, a number one defenseman gives you the sense that they'd be dominant even playing with a beer leaguer as their partner, because he elevates the game, and he does everything well themselves. So Quinn Hughes might never get there, size alone being a big reason. Nashville beat him up during that playoff series badly. You don't need necessarily a number one defender these days, because if you have a good number one pairing, it could kind of replace that. The top tandem strategy is good as well. But this is all to say that all the haters of this clip are missing your point. There's a huge difference between number one defenseman, who requires minimal assistance from their D partner, and an elite defenseman who is exceptional at their strengths but needs support from their D partner to cover their weaknesses. Both are equally capable of winning a cup under the right conditions.
Exactly.
So thank you very much, Alex Stevens, 85-87.
And
I did paraphrase a little bit there because it was a little bit long.
But he summed it up perfectly at the end. And the only thing I'll say about jack of all trades is the expression is jack of all trades but master of none. I don't think that's what an elite defenseman is, right? You want him to be a master of all. And the biggest, exactly, like Hedman. And the biggest takeaway I didn't want to discredit anyone. I never discredit Quinn Hughes or Evan Bouchard for being as good as they are, but not elite defensemen. My point was that an elite defenseman is so rare that there's maybe a handful in the whole league. That doesn't mean Quinn Hughes and Evan Bouchard are not great players. Right. And we live in this world. We live in this world where we can't praise someone without putting down someone else. That's not what I did. I did not put down Quinn Hughes by saying he's not an elite number one, true, legitimate defenseman. Would I take him on my team any day of the week? Is he a number one fantasy defenseman? Absolutely. But is he a Victor Hedman? 9 out of 10 GMs will take Victor Hedman in his prime over Quinn Hughes in his prime.
You're saying if they were
to
the
build
same
an
age.
NHL team, yeah. Anyhow, look.
Let me talk to you.
Again, I'm not discrediting Quinn Hughes, Evan Bouchard, or any of the players I mentioned. It's not about who you play with either. The fact is, like he said, elite true number one defensemen don't need someone to help them
cover their weaknesses.
Nicholas Lidstrom was a true number one defenseman. He did it all. Hedman, I have a handful here that I wrote down. Hedman, Fox, Makar, Heiskanen, Doughty, and Carlson.
We're not saying one is better than the other.
No, look, they each, to be honest with you.
Wait, you have Carlson? Who Carlson?
John Carlson for the Washington Capitals. He puts up the points. He plays crazy minutes. He plays shorthanded, and he's on the ice to defend the lead.
Okay,
look, it doesn't mean that they're the best at it, but it means that they're relied upon that way. Now, look, John Carlson, it was a push a little bit, but I tried to find as many as possible. And if John Carlson's not it, then there's only 5.
I think
my standards are definitely high.
No, they're higher than you can't have standards that high for a number one defenseman.
No, but so if I can't put Quinn Hughes and Hedman in the same conversation as a number one defenseman if one is clearly ahead of the other.
But you can't do it.
It doesn't mean Quinn Hughes is not amazing.
No, but you can't do it now because Hedman's 34 and Hughes is 20.
Yeah, but Hughes in his prime is not going to be Hedman in his prime because he doesn't have the characteristics to do so. And that's okay.
But you don't know that. You don't know that. Hughes is still very young compared to Hedman.
But until he's there, can you label him a number one defenseman? No, you can't.
Yeah, right now I could label Hughes. Not with your standards.
No, with my standards you can't. And that's okay. These are my standards, but that's what I was saying. And it's okay if you disagree. But at the end of the day...
It's your take. And I'm going to respect your take. Even though I don't agree with it, it's still respecting somebody else's
I'm not going to say the expression I told my wife, but the comparison. But what I will say is Hedman, Tampa Bay, just a couple of days ago, chose Hedman over a 26-year-old Sergachev and a 40 goal scorer Steven Stamkos. What does that tell you about the value of a guy like Hedman if you're willing to get rid of who was supposed to be the next Hedman, who still has his prime years ahead of him, a 40 goal scorer, your captain, to keep Hedman?
Okay, but that
I'm just saying.
That
But thank you for your comments, despite of some of them being very rude.
Guys,
No,
thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for your
watching.
comments. I'll accept them any way they come. But at the end of the day, I just want to add one little thing.
Mm-hmm.
We do this because we're very passionate about hockey and fantasy hockey and sports.
Yeah.
And we, instead of discussing just amongst us, we give our opinions out there and we know what comes with that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we just ask that everybody stays respectful as much as possible.
Which was, listen.
And that's it. But I just want everyone to know that there's no hard feelings here. Everyone has their own opinion, and I'm glad you guys disagree because it creates debate, and creating debate grows the game, and that's what we want.
Well, one of the other comments that we received from another listener was exactly that. Love the discussion. You know, you guys do a great job at discussing things like this. Doesn't mean you agree with us. Doesn't mean I agree with you. Doesn't
course.
mean I agree with Vince.
Well, you guys did not agree with me.
Right,
And you
exactly.
still don't. So,
But the point is that it's a discussion, and this is what the whole point of this podcast is.
and that discussion started with the fact that it was the draft and Chicago had to make a choice between Demidov and Levshunov.
That's right.
And my point there was just if you have players with the characteristics that could become that rare number one defenseman to my standards, you can't pass that up for a forward. That's all. Let's move on.
All right. Are we ready for the next segment?
Our first segment of the night.
Our next segment of the night.
Odd Man Rush.
We got a soundbite, baby.
Yeah, but it's not a soundbite and it's not Odd Man Rush unless you tell me exactly what is going to happen.
So it's a lightning round
Oh, God.
where we take the news, notes, and trends of the NHL and we turn them into a 30-second take, which usually lasts 3 minutes.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's continue kind of where we had left off, and that's the winners and losers from this past draft. So we had this past draft obviously done our live,
Yeah.
4 hours long, and and still recovering. But what was your biggest takeaway? Like, who was your winner for the draft
Well, I mean,
or loser? Whatever
besides
you prefer.
Montreal taking Demidov, no. Listen, my big winner is San Jose. And the reason I consider them a big winner is because they had 2 first-round picks, and they moved up with their second first-round pick. So obviously, Celebrini is the franchise player. But in my opinion, they also got a franchise defenseman in Sam Dickinson, who could have easily gone top 5. So, and then the cherry on top of the sundae is in the second round, they got Igor Sherzov, who was scheduled to go top 20 in the draft. So I feel they drafted well. I feel they saw an opportunity to move up from, I think it was with Buffalo, right? From 14 to 11. And I honestly believe they got Celebrini, who was their number 1 center. And then I believe Sam Dickinson will be their number 1 defenseman at some point.
So to your point, the first 5 picks that they picked were absolutely amazing. And people that I would have considered, at least the first 4, were people that I would have considered first round talents. So you have Celebrini, you have Sam Dickinson. So right there, you have a number 1 center and maybe a number 1 defenseman of your future. You have Chernyshov, who is a goal scoring right winger from Russia who had first round talent. You have Salin Walinius, who was actually someone that I considered late first round talent. And I drafted them in the Lama draft as well.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that. And Carson Wentz, who Wetch, I should say, who I played NHL 24 and he became my number 2 center. So go ahead, Junior. You want to give your take of who your winner or loser was in the draft?
My winner was the Minnesota Wild. One, they drafted my crush, Zeev Buium, 12th overall. That's, to me, is a major steal.
What a drop.
Yeah, what a drop. I think not necessarily because of him, but because teams just preferred something different. Not, you know. But I don't know, Ottawa. I think Ottawa's might regret that for a long time if Yakimchuk's not able to put all those assets together.
I had
Even though I
Yakimchuk
like
rated high.
Yakimchuk, yeah.
30 goal scorer defenseman.
So-
very, very difficult to find.
William was drafted 12th overall. I had him 4th on my fantasy rankings, so that's great. Ryder Ritchie, 45th overall. I think that was a great pick. And the one I liked the most, he was he had an injury-plagued season, so he wasn't able to be scouted a lot, and it feared a lot of teams. But Aaron Kiviharju was drafted 122nd in this draft. And did you see that clip?
Yeah.
When he went to the table, he went to Bill Guerin, the GM of the Wild, and he says, "You just got the steal of the draft."
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I didn't like him enough before, I loved him even more after that. So I think he has the skill set to be great, especially offensively, and I think he complements Bouillon very well, actually. So that's a nice 1-2 combo they can have for a long time. So for me, Minnesota Wild was one of the winners of this draft. I don't necessarily disagree though with San Jose. They had a good draft.
They had
as
a
well.
really good draft. Both those teams had a very good draft,
Yeah.
actually. My winner was Calgary Flames. And Flames fans, you've been kind of down and out recently with the whole Kachuk thing. You've been down and out as well because the Huberdeau thing didn't exactly pan out for you right away. The Goudreau leaving as well. So, you know what? It's time to have some faith here because the draft worked out marvelous for you. Zane Parekh, the number one right-handed offensive defenseman in this pool 2024 draftees. Great pick at number 9.
From a fantasy perspective, it's a great fit also.
Yeah. Gridden, I should say. Matvey Gridden, left-hand, 6'1" winger who actually can't go to college because didn't have high enough marks.
Wow.
So he's probably going to go to the CHL. But anyways, regardless, he was a good pick there as well. He was a first rounder in my books. In the second round, they got Andrew Basha, who I thought was a first round
Love
talent
Andrew
at
Basha.
41.
Love Andrew Basha.
They got Jacob Battaglia from the Frontenacs, who I thought, not a first rounder, but I thought he was a high second rounder. They got him at 62.
They got great value picks right there.
Henry Muse in the third round. I love Henry Muse, right-handed defenseman again, 6 foot tall from Ottawa. So I thought they had an amazing grad. They got all kinds of talent here, and I think they're going to hit at least on 3 of these guys for sure to become NHLers.
Were they the ones that drafted Luke Misa?
Luke Misa was drafted by
I thought it was Calgary.
Yes, it was 5th round. Luke Misa.
5th round.
Yeah, could be a steal.
He was 23 on my fantasy prospect list.
Yeah.
5'10".
And even Hunter Lang is supposed to be very good. Anyways, they had a great draft. Absolutely great draft.
And any losers? Ooh, any losers in the draft?
Look, I know who Junior would say, but I wasn't too convinced with Ottawa's draft.
I agree.
I wasn't too convinced with it.
Philly?
Look, yeah.
Philly depends how you rank Luchenko because there are some teams out there that did have Luchenko that high.
Okay.
So if it was a little bit of a reach, maybe 5-pick reach for a center that's a two-way center, like it's not the end of the world, right? So, but I agree, it's kind of weird because there was other players available on the board that would have helped them right away,
Yeah, exactly.
And they traded down.
and they traded down.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's fun to see how all this is going to develop in the next few years.
Yeah,
And see, because I thought Philly was a winner last year with Michkov.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
Speaking of Mishkov,
Hmm.
he signed his entry-level contract. Sorry, I just did a segue. I skipped 2 of them because it was
It's
a
fine.
perfect segue.
It's fine.
You go.
So, yeah, Mishkov makes his way to North America, signs a 3-year entry-level contract. Are we drafting him in fantasy here, or
Well, what do you mean?
Like,
are you drafting him in redrafts? Obviously, in
redraft
dynasty leagues,
Dynasty leagues,
it's
everybody
no
has him.
joke, right?
Okay.
It's a given.
In redraft leagues,
And what's his impact for next year?
I
He's
can't-
clearly going to play right in the NHL. We agree, right? he's going to be with
absolutely.
the main
if he's
team.
coming over, he's going to
not.
play.
He's not going to the AHL. That's for sure. He's there to play, and he's there. Sorry, Nick. My thing is, it all depends how he gets along with Tortorella.
That's a good point.
If he goes in the doghouse, then
If Tortorella gives him 12 minutes a game.
yeah, exactly. But if he gets the power play one, and listen, Connecting, I don't think signed yet with them, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he's still in the contract.
still in
I
the
think he
contract.
has 1 or 2 years
Okay.
left, but there was trade rumors for him.
Listen, I would draft in a redraft. I would draft Michkov. I think too many people draft him a little too high.
Too high, yeah.
But I would in the later rounds. I'd say if he's still there in round 6, 7, you definitely pick him up.
So
Especially
you're
in
talking in the 60s, in the 70s?
How many
If you're
teams?
10 teams, yeah, in the 60, 70.
Well, yeah, I'm assuming it's a 10-team league.
So 60, 70, yeah, I think I would draft him around that corner.
See, I would probably draft him closer to the 80 mark, just for the season one, because season one of a player's offensive production is usually not like amazing points, right? You're not expecting them to necessarily get 75 points in year one. Could it happen? Could happen, but you're probably expecting him to be closer to the 50, 60 range in total points.
Yeah.
So if this is a points-only league, and Michkov is known, according to my research, to be a points player, a player that is going to be putting up points, I don't really see him putting up more than 50 in his first season.
But what if goals count for more than assists? Does that push him up?
It should.
Because he's more of a I'm not expecting 50 goals from Michkov, but
Yeah.
I mean,
It's a good point.
25
it's a
to
good point.
30 goals.
Look, he's played with men, so like that's but the ice surface is not the same.
It's a
so
change.
That's going to take some adaptation, but he's definitely going to get power play one time. I mean, who else? No one has a secure spot there that Mishkov can't take, right?
The wild card with Michkov is Tortorella. We all know Tortorella likes his players to play a specific time, so we'll see.
But I'm sure his agent said to Briere, like, if he's coming over, you're playing this kid. You know what I mean? There's got to be some. Yeah, obviously, Tortorella at some point could say, look, if he's not doing what I need him to do, then he can't play. But
Junior, Tortorella scratched his captain for 2 games, so we'll see. Well, following in that segment, since we're talking about Michkov and Montreal did not draft him first overall, we've got Slafkovsky, whose extension, 8 years, 7.6 million. Is that a yay, a nay, or wait to see?
Well, I mean, obviously wait to see, but the whole point here is that Hughes is doing a bet. My first overall pick in forever, right? Because the Habs never had one for a very long time. But my first overall pick ended up taking a big step forward this sophomore season of his. And we now see him as somebody that's going to be a top line player.
Mm-hmm.
So why not give him the money where, yes, he's not going to be worth 7.6 million in the first year or the second year, but in his prime, he's going to be a steal in the sense that he's probably could have gotten 9 on the market, right? Or 10 on the market, especially if the cap keeps going up. Now we have him under Suzuki's false ceiling, let's say, of salary that the Habs like to keep that structure. So it's a no-brainer move in my sense. If Slafkovsky fails, guys, the Habs are in a lot more trouble than anything else. So the 7.6 is not going to be their problem. Their problem is they're not going to have enough talent to compete.
I feel our GM was from the Boston area, lived in the Boston area. And I think he learned something from the Boston Bruins, which was at one point the Boston Bruins had Bergeron. No one's making more than Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah.
And everybody was making less. But at one point, Pasternak had to make a lot more because he was younger. But I feel they're taking a book out of the Boston Bruins here, and I like it. I like it. The only thing is, in year 5, 6, and 7 of the contracts of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky, they should be cup contenders. Because these guys' next contracts, there's no way we keep everybody and everything.
Well,
So,
that's it. So like he created a window.
yes.
With this, he created a clear window that it's about 6 years, because I think
and
Caulfield and Suzuki and 2 years before Slafkovsky. But it's a calculated risk. based off his
Yeah, for sure.
progression and his experience now and so on. Like we see he's trending upwards. So it's a calculated risk. And like Nick said, if Slafkovsky doesn't pan out, the problem is not his salary. It's the fact that he didn't pan out.
Right.
So he would have been a problem regardless because it would have set us back another 5 years.
Yeah. Listen, I like the move. I think that in the next year is not the year where we're going to compete for a playoff spot.
Oh, he's still on his ELC one more year.
Exactly.
And then that contract
I
kicks
feel, I feel in 2 years from now, we're competing for a playoff spot. But once we make the first year we make that playoff, after that it's not only making the playoffs, it's not satisfactory anymore making the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because
Start trying to win the division.
Because
And,
I feel that's when you're going to start signing players, overplaying players like Marchessault and stuff like that to fill the holes of your team.
Well, I actually think it's going to be a year sooner just because of the crop that's potentially available next year. The next year's UFA crop is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Now, probably half of them are going to re-sign with their teams. Crosby, Draisaitl, Rantanen. But these are all guys that are available next year.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That if someone's available that you really want and that's willing to come, then that's maybe where you force it a year sooner to make sure you get him. But we'll see.
All right, I have here. There was a trade.
We got a trade to announce.
Oh, you just.
I wasn't sure you were going to remember.
I always remember. It's our producer.
We have a trade to announce.
So no, he didn't know I was going to mention this one, but Savoie was traded to Edmonton for McLeod and Tulsi, I think, are the names of the people coming back. McLeod, by the way, is a very good third liner.
Mm-hmm.
He's a legit NHLer.
He's a legit NHLer.
Middle six.
And Savoie is supposed to, well, he was drafted 9th overall, so he's supposed to be a star. Number one, what did Edmonton end up getting? And number two, was the return enough for New Jersey? Buffalo.
At first, glance, what is Buffalo doing, right? I mean, you hear that there are negotiations for Nick Ash and so on and so forth. They're looking for a top 6 forward. And then they go and trade one of their most prolific prospects for a role player, essentially, which is McLeod. And now that's taking nothing away from McLeod because he's great at what he does.
He is.
Right? And that's going to add a lot of value to this Buffalo team. But they're still lacking something in the top 6. And wouldn't have Savoie been a great asset to add to get a top 6 player? But then I started thinking about it and I said, maybe there's something, maybe we're too high on Savoie because I'm sure other NHL teams like Carolina would have maybe wanted him or why would they have shipped him off for a role player when I'm sure there was an opportunity somewhere to include him for a bigger piece? Maybe there's something on Savoie that people are starting to see that they don't like.
No,
I don't know.
I don't know if it's. I think it's more they had too many players identical to Savoie. Peterka, Jack Quinn, Zach Benson. I think those 3 players. They looked at their players and they said, "These are the 3 players we want to move on with." And with Savoie, they just said, "Now, do I think they could have gotten a better return for Savoie? We don't know. Do I think the return they got is a bit sometimes we see winners and losers in trades. On paper, Edmonton got 9th overall pick. Now, is he going to pan out in Edmonton? Because there's not, without the signings Edmonton did, which we'll talk about after, there's not much space for Savoie in that team right now, right? For next year. So I think Buffalo gambled and said, listen, Peterka, Jack Quinn, Benson, we think these players are going to develop better than Savoie. And they made the deal. And they got a very good third line centerman who got great playoff experience. And that could help their team because Buffalo, whether we like it or not next year, it's playoffs or bust. There's no not making the playoffs for Buffalo next year. It's playoffs or bust. So I think they're filling out their 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 forwards and trying to get a steady one over there because up top they've already got their spots.
Okay, so Matt Savoie, two things right away. The shine did wear off, and it wore off a bit, not a lot, but it wore off a bit. So, like Vince's point, they have other guys that are similar in stature and similar in skill set already in their pool. They needed to get something that's going to help them now, and a third line center is something I feel like they were missing anyways in their roster. McLeod comes in right away as a third line center for them in a shutdown role. Sam Lafferty would be the fourth line center at that point. Tyler Tullio was 9th on the Edmonton depth chart before the draft. So we're not talking about somebody that's a great prospect. And at the end of the day, Savoie has a chance now to be the best prospect that Edmonton has. So one person told me, is this a little bit of insurance for Draisaitl not resigning? I don't think so. That's a little bit out there, but let's just say that Matt Savoie could come in and instantly be the best prospect that Edmonton has and could jump to the NHL sooner rather than later.
Can I tell you what it's insurance for? Jeff Skinner.
We're going to talk about that.
Talk about Jeff Skinner, but it's insurance for Jeff Skinner.
Interesting. All right.
Finally, no tax states at it again with some big signings in free agency. I have my own take on this no tax states, which I have. So I'll make you guys talk first, and then I'll give my opinion.
Okay, so I will say that it's an advantage. It's an advantage because no tax states are able to sign people at, let's say, $8 million, which is the same money in their pocket as, let's say, a Canadian province would have to pay them $11 million just to compensate for the fact that they're going to lose $2 million in taxes. Actually, it's going to be a lot more than $2 million in taxes, but they have to compensate by adding a little bit of a buffer, a little bit of a sweetener to their deals. So it's like we're kind of starting off with less money than every other team that is a no-tax state. Having said that, there's not a lot of those teams, even though Tampa and Florida are constantly going near the finals recently, and Dallas always has a very competitive team. It seems that they're able to sign people at less, and that's an advantage for them.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much the tax. Like, I mean, agents have come out and said it publicly that it's not as big of a deal as people think for players. Look, wouldn't you and your family love to live in Florida? I think it's more about the climate than it is the tax state. I mean, if you get both, great. But I think it's also a family thing where the family wants them, like, are they willing to move and live there? But at the end of the day, the player wants to win. You create a good market, you create a good team that has a big window, whether you're in Montreal, Florida, Edmonton, or in the Wazoo, like, it doesn't matter. They're going to find a way to go to a team that could win. And a lot of times, these guys are cap constrained. So they might not always have a choice. I don't think the tax thing is as big a deal as people think. I do think it plays a factor, but I think there's more important things on the list for players than the tax state.
Okay, so
No tax state. Start.
yeah, my whole thing on the no tax state. Listen, Sam Reinhart doesn't sign that contract with the Montreal Canadiens,
No.
or with the Toronto Maple Leafs or anybody else. Obviously, he signed it because he was in Florida. It's an advantage for the player itself and team, but does it turn into success? And the answer is no. Since the salary cap has been introduced in the NHL, we've had, in 2005, the salary cap was introduced because there was the lockout. So 2006, Hurricanes won, Ducks won, Red Wings won, Penguins, blah. Like, none of these, Nashville, have they ever won anything? No. So,
No.
like,
They won this offseason.
but like,
Well, on paper.
and then people will come back and say, oh, yeah, well, this year Florida won. Last year Vegas won. The year before that, Tampa Bay won. Okay, Tampa Bay won $80 million over the cap with Kucherov being on LTIR. Vegas won with $10 million over the cap with Stone being on LTIR. So it's not, I don't think it's the the no tax, it helps signing a player, but it doesn't lead to success, to winning the Stanley Cup. What leads to the success of winning Stanley Cup is teams playing with the loopholes of the NHL. And I think that's where you start playing, that's where the advantage comes.
But I actually think it's more of an advantage for the team than it is for the player.
Yeah,
Because the team gets a lower AAV.
So-
But the player, whether he signs in Florida or signs for $3 million more in a different market, he still makes that same money. But the team is a disadvantage in the sense that the AAV is higher.
We could also say the fact that
Oh, we're blurring out here, guys.
4 out of the 5 teams, 4 out of the 5 last teams to win a Stanley Cup were all no tax states.
Yep.
So take that.
I
Take that as
explained
you
that,
will.
but 2 of those teams were over the cap.
Doesn't matter.
But
4 out of the
but they're
5.
still over the cap.
Okay, Montreal was over the cap the time that they went deep in the playoffs.
But that's what I'm saying. So it's not because it's no tax state. It's because they went through a loophole of the NHL.
Maybe.
So-
Okay. So let's move on to what everybody actually tuned in for. And that is the recap of the 2024 free agent frenzy. And that happened on July 1st. So let's talk about some of these teams. And you want to start maybe with a re-signing?
You guys want
I
to go
thought we
player
had-
by player?
I thought we had a soundbite for this. There's a lot of money sent out
Let me
out
see.
during this free agency. What is it? 1 point something billion dollars handed
Yes,
out?
It was a record.
A record. Yeah, there it is.
Go, money talk.
Here comes the money.
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar. Ching, ching, bling, bling.
All right. Who wants to start? Well, you already mentioned Sam Reinhart, so why don't you start, Vince?
Okay, so Sam Reinhart re-signed with Florida, 8 years at 8.625.
Steal.
So what does this mean for fantasy, either dynasty or redraft leagues?
Look, if he ends up performing the way he did last year, 8.6 million, I feel like he would have gotten an extra 2 just by going to the market. He's decided to stay with Florida. It's a team that he won with. It's a team that he's still celebrating his championship with. He decided to stay there an extra 8 years. Good for him. You know what? Before that, he was in Buffalo forever, and they don't make playoffs. So this is an opportunity to be with a good winning team.
I like it. I still expect a dip in production regardless. But, fantasy-wise, look, do I think he's going to hit 94 points next year? No. His shooting percentage did increase by 5%. That's a lot. Doesn't mean he's going to be 60-point player, but it might drop to like just under 80 or something, maybe a point per game. But no, it's a great value, by the way. Even if he's a point per game at 8.625, we wouldn't take that. And he plays shorthanded, plays power play, so he gets all those additional points too.
Well, the next one is Jake Gensel.
And they keep that line intact, by the way,
Yeah.
Very true.
with Verghege and Barkov.
Jake Gensel is the next one. He signs a 7 times $9 million. So obviously, Tampa Bay had actually done this prior to July 1st. They went out and acquired his rights.
Yeah.
And then on June 30th, they went ahead and signed him to a max 7 years, $9 million per. Value-wise, I think this is a value signing because, again, Gensel has proven that he could do this without elite centers. He doesn't need Crosby in order to perform. He was performing everything on his own, and he was driving play on his own. Jake Gensel is maybe one of the best left wingers, top 5 left wingers in the game right now.
Yeah, I think he's a little bit underrated because of the fact he played with Crosby for so long.
And everybody was talking about Crosby,
Right.
right?
And when Crosby wasn't there, he still managed to get points, but nobody paid as much attention to it.
That's right.
And with Carolina, it took him like a week or so, or a week to 10 days, but he finally got it going with Sebastian Aho. Look, it's a great value. I mean, we were all expecting him to sign 10 plus at some point, right? If
That's
it
right.
wasn't in Tampa, it would have been higher than 10. I still expect him to produce, and plus, he's playing with elite players. If he's on the line with
That's-
Kucherov and Braden Point,
But even if he's not, just being on the power
That's
play
it.
and you're playing with Point, Kucherov, and Hedman,
crazy value.
It's No, this is whoever has Gensel in the Dynasty League is doing the rain dance right now and the happy dance because it's a wonderful signing for them at a respectable AVV.
Well, with the cap going up,
Exactly.
right? This is like he was signed for like 8 million instead of 9. Great value.
I see easily a point per game there in Tampa.
It's too bad that Carolina didn't accept his.
Because
Bold-
he's
bold-
on average, his career is about a point per game.
Bold prediction: he hits 50 goals this year.
Wow,
wow.
He's going to go
With
50.
Tampa. I
The
think so.
most he's had is twice he scored 40 goals.
Yeah. I think he hits 50. But
Do we do a board bet?
Ooh,
Is
is
this
this
one
going
of
to be our
those
first board bet of the season?
Hey, it's
how do-
episode 2 of season 2.
how do we do a 3-way board bet?
Well, we could do ranges, or we could do exact amount, and whoever wins. By the way, you still owe me a steak dinner.
Yeah, I do still owe you a steak dinner. Okay, so let's do this. Gensel, Vince, you're saying
I'm saying 50.
50 plus or like 45 to 50?
No, 50 plus.
Do we do this a little bit like the Price is Right?
Plus 50. There we go. All right, Nick, $1. Nick, where do you have Gensel?
So you picked $1?
No.
You can do that if you want.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say
You could
he
give a
goes-
range of 5 goals.
I'll say 45.
So 45 to 50
Yeah.
or 40 to 45?
45 to 50.
45 to 50. I'll go 40 to 45.
Oh, and then he scores 39 and none of us eat. All right. I like it, guys.
All right, that's our first board bet.
Our camera's
We wrote
going-
it down this time, so that's good.
Our camera's going nuts over there with the blurriness.
I don't think we need to worry about
By the way-
camera because,
For the viewers, we got a new sign, which is probably causing all these problems.
yes.
Okay, so next one.
And those of you that are listening to this on audio really don't care.
So next
Hit
one.
us up on YouTube.
Jonathan Marchessault, 5-year, $5.5 million with Nashville.
Okay, so actually, let's talk about all of Nashville because Nashville was quite
Okay, so we have Jonathan Marchessault, who signed 5 years, 5.5 for Nashville. Brady Shea, 7 years, $7 million for Nashville. And we have Steven Stamkos, 4 years, $8 million in Nashville, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what do we think about these 3 players in Nashville?
Okay, so I'll start. I think that number one, they have kind of overcommitted in years in order to try to attract these free agents. And by doing so, they've actually opened a window for them to compete for the cup. And that window might only be, I think, personally, I think it's a 3-year window right now.
Oh, and they re-signed Saros.
And they re-signed Saros. So why do I say 3-year window? Well, they signed Marchessault 5 years, 5.5. He's 33 years old. He's going to be 38 at the end of the contract. How effective will Marchessault be at 37, 38 years old? I'm not so sure. Brady Shea, 7 times 7. Brady Shea is only is a 30-year-old player. So when it comes to 7 times 7, you're really banking on the next 5 years of that contract, hoping to pay off. It's a little bit of an overpay already because Brady Shea, he had his career year points-wise last year. But before that, he wasn't really a points getter. Much of one, anyways. 30 years old. He's going to be 37 at the end of the contract. Steven Stamkos is already 34 years old. He signed 4 times 8. Well, he's going to be 38 at the end of the contract, getting paid $8 million. So really, I see a 3-year window here. And the 3-year window is kind of all I give Nashville because of all these signings.
And don't forget, Roman Yossi's no young stud either, eh? So
Don't you feel like they did this for Yossi?
probably.
Saying, hey, I'm going to give you a chance to win a cup in the next 3 years.
Probably. Look, so just to touch on, I think Brady Shea's fantasy value dips quite a bit.
I agree.
Look, I didn't realize this till I researched it for this segment, but he only averaged like 59 seconds of power play time. That's not a lot. And he still managed to put up a lot of points 5-on-5. So he's still 40 points at $7 million. For me, it's not enough in a fantasy cap league. So I think his production will probably dip, but from NHL perspective, it's a good addition to the team if they want to build a winning team. Jonathan Marchessault. Look, anytime you add a lot of pieces to a team all at once, it never really just blends so easily, right? So I don't know how this is going to work. Steven Stamkos, I think, could make it work. He has like a specific trait, especially on the power play. He's going to put up a lot of points. I have a hard time with Marchessault. I don't know how well he'll fit in Nashville.
I have a little bit of a harder time with Stamkos. And yeah, you might say that, hey, he's a 40 goal scorer last year. What are you talking about? I just find that he's slowed down a bit. And you could see it in his skating, right? He's not creating the stuff on his own, but he's still finishing.
Mm-hmm.
But he needs someone to set him up. So I don't know if is Marchessault going to be that guy? Is Tommy Novak going to be that guy?
I feel they're a little weak down the middle. I mean, when you have O'Reilly as your number one and Novak as your number two, I think O'Reilly would better be fit as number two and have someone else as a number one. I do agree with Junior saying Sage, his fantasy value goes way down because whether we like it or not,
Brady Shea?
Brady Shea, yeah, because the puck goes through Yossi. Even if he's playing with Yossi, he's going to be passing the puck to Yossi, and Yossi is going to bring up the play.
Well, Brady Shea wasn't the top power play guy in Carolina, right?
Well,
Burns
yeah,
was.
at one point they took Burns off, and that's how he got his power play time. But so, listen, Steven Stamkos, I think he's going to be there to prove a point. He's going to come back with vengeance that he can still play in this league. So I think he'll be good. Jonathan Marchessault, listen, we always underestimate this guy, and he always comes out with a winning season, right? So, listen, I like the moves, but I agree with Junior. Again, saying you put in these many new guys on one team, how fast is it going to take for them to blend? So, we'll see. We'll take it from there.
So just to your depth at center, what if they put Stamkos as center? And then you have O'Reilly, Stamkos, and Novak as your 1, 2, 3.
Can Stamkos keep up being in the
I don't
middle?
think he's a center anymore.
That's what it'd be. But Stamkos, what you're banking on is those power play points, right?
Yes.
You have Forsberg, O'Reilly, Stamkos,
Yeah.
Yossi on the power play.
I think this even though Forsberg had a great year last year, I think this helps Forsberg even more.
Their power play is going to be lethal at this point. But I still think they're missing that number 2 center, number 1 center.
Look, Nashville would have been my winner if it wasn't for Edmonton making the Cup final and still adding pieces here.
And keeping pieces.
And keeping pieces. So to me, and listener Tasso, if you're listening, I love you.
Is there a butt coming?
No, not at all. There's no buts. The fact of the matter is that they added Jeff Skinner, 32 years old, 1 times 3 bargain price, right? Obviously, he just got bought out by Buffalo. The guy can't play defense if his life depended on him, but if McDavid is setting him up, or if he's playing on a line with McDavid, which right now, if you take a look at Daily Faceoff, that's their line combo prediction, is that he's going to be playing with McDavid. We've said this before. Anybody playing with McDavid has value. And Skinner is not someone that doesn't know how to score. Skinner knows how to score. If he does one thing right, it's score. So I think this is a great fit. His value now is at $3 million for cap leagues. That's great value to have for Skinner. $9 million, he was almost dead in the water. He was worthless at $9 million, right? Before. So that's my takeaway with Skinner. Arvidsson, don't sleep on Arvidsson. 2 times 4. This guy is also going to be playing probably with either McDavid or Draisaitl. So we're looking at another very good player that could score 30 goals. And Adam Henrique. Adam Henrique coming back to Edmonton to finish the job that he started at 2 times 3 to be their third line center, shutdown role. Maybe not as much fantasy value, but still a great player to have if you're trying to win a cup.
Vince, you want to take it, or you want me to?
Listen, I'll say this. This, I think Edmonton realized they needed more help for McDavid and Draisaitl, and went to pick up, I would say, 2 players at a low cost. Skinner at $3 million. Like, if you're in a fantasy dynasty league, this is a wonderful, because he's been scoring goals and playing with nobodies and now he's actually playing with McDavid, Draisaitl. The only thing is Hyman is still there, so Hyman's still getting those goals, right? To me, the big pickup is Arvidsson, because this is a guy who could play power play, shorthanded, and help. In LA, when he was injured, you saw LA struggle because he was injured.
So you just said it, injured. And last year, he only played 18 games, right?
That's it.
So you're hoping and you're putting a bet that this guy is going to stay healthy. And he's had 5 20-goal seasons.
But in fantasy, let's say if I'm doing a redraft, I'm picking Arvidsson before I pick up Skinner.
Well, I was gonna say the Skinner pickup scares me. I think this has a lot of risk. I think this offseason had a lot of risk for the Oilers, but possibly a very high reward. But if this doesn't work out, I don't see how they're competing for a cup. If Skinner is the second half Skinner, I mean, you said he didn't play with anybody, but he had Tage Thompson. He's got Alex Tuck. He has Dylan Cousins was on that team. So, like, he still had players. And they were putting him up and down the lineup, and they just couldn't figure it out. If it's the second half of Skinner, Edmonton won't be happy with him. But it's only a $3 million cap hit. They'll figure it out. I like Arvidsson a lot. But if he stays injured and Skinner doesn't come through, that's 2 top 6 players that you were projecting that now are not there, which is why I think Savoie was their insurance policy. But he would have to play wing.
He could.
But I like Vince. I like Arvidsson better than Skinner.
When you look at this team, is it hard to envision that they win the division?
No, but I mean, I like Vancouver as well. We'll get to one of their additions later, but I like
They
Vancouver.
look deep, though. Edmonton looks deeper than they've ever looked before. Talking about a team that had no
they
depth.
added on offense. They didn't really structure themselves a little bit more on defense.
Talking about a team that had absolutely no depth before, the Chicago Blackhawks have added NHL players.
Yeah, a lot of depth, it seems. Tyler Bertuzzi,
Teravainen,
Mikheyev
Pat
through
Maroon.
trade.
But the 3 that we're going to focus on a little bit here is Laurent Brossoit in nets. 1 times 3.3, 31 years old. Tyler Bertuzzi at 4 times 5.5 at 29 years old. And Teuvo Teravainen coming back to Chicago, 3 times 5.4 million at 29 years old. Anybody want to talk to me about what they think and what they envision these players doing for fantasy-wise next season?
So to me, Tyler Bertuzzi's fantasy upside goes way up right now because he is playing in a non-pressure, non-expecting team. Last year, he was with Toronto. There was expectations. There was a lot of players ahead of him. There was Nylander, Tavares. He wasn't even getting PP1 sometimes because you had Marner, Matthews, Tavares, and Nylander on the same power play. Here, it's him. It's Taylor Hall who come back from surgery, and then you got Bedard. So, and I mean, how many goals did Kursev score last year playing with Bedard? You must.
I think he hit 30, but I like these questions that you throw out there when you know we're not prepared, right?
Wait, I'll get it.
And he had close to 30, but I think it was 20, 25 or
I have it here. Philip Kursev.
24.
He scored. Oh my God, you guys are way off. He scored 18 goals. But I feel Bertuzzi's fantasy landscape goes way up. Going to Chicago, Teravainen. I mean, he'll play second line center in Chicago. He was playing second line minutes in Carolina, and I mean, put up the points he did. So, to me, and Brossoit, unless he becomes the next given Patrick Roy and puts the team on his back, I don't think he has any fantasy value in this whole thing. So to me, Bertuzzi skyrocket, and Teravainen, he stays steady like he stayed last year.
All right, so I'll say that Bertuzzi stays even keel for me. And the reason why is because I'm not expecting Chicago to be a plus-minus team that's very good. I'm not expecting Chicago to... I don't think that Bedard is necessarily an upgrade for Bertuzzi as a line mate than Matthews was. So, or Matthews Martin or whatever. For me, he stays even keel. He stays exactly where he was before. 4 times 5.5 is not a bad rate to have. I don't know if he is the main guy if you really think about it, winger wise.
But that's what I'm saying. See, like you mentioned, he played with Matthews Marner. If you go on that line, it's Matthews, Marner, Bertuzzi. If you go now in Chicago, it's Bedard, Bertuzzi, and Kursev. Right,
but I don't expect Chicago to be as potent offensively as Toronto was. So he's not going to get those. I'm in front of the net and Matthews takes a shot and it hits my face and it goes in.
Well, he's gonna get the Bedard one. He's gonna get the Bedard shot in the face instead.
It's not as much firepower in Chicago, I find.
I was never really high on Bertuzzi to begin with, even in his days of Detroit. He's only scored 30 goals once in his career. Other than that, he had a couple of 21-goal seasons. I don't know. I'm not big on him. Does he have a bit more liberty in the Chicago, less pressure? Yes. But I think I'm more excited for Teravainen in Chicago than I am of Bertuzzi. Teravainen's going to get like definite power play one time. He's a great setup man. He's a great power play man. He plays short-handed as well. I think he's going to help structure a little bit of their defensive game. He's coming off a 25-goal season, 53-point season. I think he can continue at that level, especially if he's on a line with Bedard. Don't forget Hall is coming back too. So they're going to have a bit of a more veteran lineup, which is going to help all these players. And the reason they did that is because Davidson, the GM of the Blackhawks, stated that it was too easy for these rookies and these young players to earn a spot. So now he wants them to really earn it before they get like, he wants them to earn it instead of just be given to them, right? But I do like the Brossoit one, and I like it for 2 reasons. One, it takes away some pressure from Mrazek. So Mrazek doesn't have to play more games than he's probably capable of. So his value will go up because his numbers will be better. And Brossoit too won't play as many games, and his value will be pretty good. Mrazek put up decent numbers for a team that was very bad in plus-minus. So I think this solidifies a bit of their structure.
I think that also has to do with a good job that Luke Richardson has done.
You're right.
Without an NHL roster, and he still had them competing.
Well, I don't know about competing, but he had them playing hard.
Well, I don't mean competing for the Stanley Cup, but he had them playing every single game.
Yeah,
it wasn't you don't walk into Chicago and score 10 goals on them.
But out of maybe Brossoit could be that Joey Decord. Who knows?
Chicago is in a rebuild, in the beginnings of a rebuild, and I think all these moves were made so that the Nazars are not hurried into the NHL, and Oliver Moore are not hurried into the NHL. So they get they do their time in the AHL, and then take it from there.
Absolutely.
Next, the journeyman himself, Shane Gottisberger, 3 times 3.2 million to Carolina. Fantasy wise, what are we looking at?
I think it's fantasy wise, it's a great contract. B, he's going to put up some good numbers because that's power play one time. Brent Burns is still there, but Brady Shea was in and out taking his spot. I don't know if Brent Burns is going to be the number 1 defenseman on that power play.
Well,
and with the numbers Gostisbehere put up with Detroit, I think he'll be at least he'll be given the first opportunity on PP1.
I think it's gonna maybe diminish a little bit if he's not on that PP1, obviously. But he replaces Shea. Shea did last year is what Gostisbehere should be doing this year, in my opinion.
I just feel
he's a little bit more offensive. I think.
I think they're just gonna give him the PP1 off the bat. I think Burns has lost the PP1, and I think they're gonna give it to Gottisberger. I think that's where he gets his points, right? That's his bread and butter is the power play.
So if you're a fantasy GM and according to Vince, maybe this is a guy you target.
Oh, 100. Well, if you need that, if
3.2 million is not bad.
No.
For 3 years
for a third and fourth defenseman, I take him over Burns. Whoever has Burns, I would panic if I have Brett Burns on my team right now.
And he's 3 times 3.4 million.
Yeah.
So they gave a commitment to this guy.
No. If I'm an owner of Brett Burns right now, I panic because he can easily lose his PP1 to this player.
All right, let's move on to another one.
The last 3 seasons, 56 points, 41 points, 51 points.
Yeah. Exactly.
Brandon Montour, 7 times 7, 1, 4, 2, 5, 8, 5, 7, doesn't matter. 7 times 7, 1. So, 30 years old, signs in Seattle for 7 times 7, 1. What do you think?
Terrible contract.
Well, I mean, terrible contract if he doesn't put up the points that he did 2 years ago.
That's my thing.
Right.
First thing, Seattle doesn't have the offensive players Florida does. And second of all, you signed Vince Dunn. So Vince Dunn is still your number one at this point. We can all agree. So he's at number 2 defenseman, getting paid 7.1, close to 7.2 million. I think this is not a hooray for Montour owners. I think this is more of a step back because Seattle is offensively challenged. I don't think they fixed that with any of the signings they did this year. So
one thing that disappoints me about this is that it kind of lowers a little bit the expectation I had for Riker Evans. Because Vince Dunn was the number 1 power play guy, and I think he's going to probably stay the number 1 power play guy. Brandon Montour gets the 2nd power play. That leaves Riker Evans on the 3rd pairing, probably not getting any power play time whatsoever unless one of these guys gets injured. So a little disappointing. I'm still kind of targeting him from listener Tasso in a potential trade. Anyways, we'll see. It's still early in the negotiation tactics, but I'm just a little disappointed that he's not going to get an opportunity sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of money. Does he beat Vince Dunn for the power play 1? Maybe at some point, but for how long? I don't know. I definitely, it was a flash in the pan, the 73 points 2 years ago. I don't think that's ever going to happen again for Montour, no matter where he would have ended up. So fantasy value is way down, and in cap leagues, I don't think it's worth drafting or trading for, to be honest. So
it's too bad. In LPHL, I had wasted a 1st rounder on him last year.
While we're on the subject, we didn't write it, but do you want to touch on Chandler Stevenson heading to Seattle as well? Literally the perfect fit, right? We keep saying they're like a team of second liners. Boom, they go get a second liner.
It's amazing, though. You have Chandler Stevenson coming in. You have Beniers. You have McCann, Eberle, Burakovsky, Schwartz. Like, none of these guys are legit first liners anymore. Eberle used to be, maybe, but not anymore, in my opinion.
McCann was hurt this year, if I'm not mistaken. So I think, but no, not. Listen, in all these players, the one guy I think who's going to make the leap up is Shane Wright.
Really?
Yeah.
We didn't even mention Shane Wright, but you're saying that he's going to be the one that replaces...
I think at one point Shane Wright will be the number 1 centerman for the Seattle Kraken.
Over Beniers?
Yeah. 100%.
Interesting. That's a hot take right there.
And right now I think Seattle is... I don't know if they're mixed in between just trying to make the playoffs and see what happens. The type of Bergevin.
You're gonna get comments now, of you should stick to your day job.
Yeah, like the Bergevin tactics. Let's just fill up a team with a bunch of workers, and then once the playoff comes, see what happens. So listen, Chandler Stevenson didn't do bad in Vegas. Let's not get it twisted.
64 points, 65 points, and 51 last year.
Exactly.
Those were his last 3 years. Do we think he could do that with Seattle?
But second line numbers.
Yeah.
Do we expect
they're
more of
low
the same?
second line numbers, but the problem is with those points he was playing first line with Vegas at some point. So
not over Eichel, not the last few years.
I just think Seattle is offensively challenged. They haven't done anything to change that mindset in offensively with the forwards. So I feel like you guys said, these are just second liners that are getting the opportunity to play.
Look, 60 points, 55 points at 6.25. It's not crazy, but I mean, I think there's better value out there for fantasy.
I agree. I agree. All right, let's move on. So David Perron signs with Ottawa. So let's start with Junior, our favorite Ottawa resident.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think that's what Ottawa needed, personally. Look, does he do well? Yes. Is he going to increase their power play success? Maybe a little bit. But Ottawa's not structured. And Perron is not reliable to be structured.
Well, they have a new coach coming in.
So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, it's a lot of change to do at once. Look, his fantasy output, what do I expect? Look, he had 47 points last year, so it was like a 10-point dip from the 3 to 4 previous years. So Detroit, his first year in Detroit was 56, and then last year was 47. 17 power play points. I mean, that's where he's going to live, right? If for any fantasy value whatsoever, he has to succeed on the power play. He might be on the second line, maybe the third line, but he'll probably be on power play 1. I'm not crazy about it. I if I have to, a good depth player, maybe at $4 million, but it's not someone I'm rushing to go get.
I think they made this signing as a backup in case Josh Norris can go. And I think that's what it is. I think I don't think he'll get PP1 with the players they have. I mean, you have Kachuk, Stutzel, Pinto, Batterson. These guys are going to be PP1 before he hits the PP1. So, I mean, he might get power play 2 minutes. I think this is just a move where they're not sure about Josh Norris' health. So, if he does go down, Perron can easily fill that second line hole in that aspect. So, listen.
You don't think he'll get power play time before Shane Pinto?
No. Well, Shane Pinto's now on number 1.
Well, I mean, if they have Kachuk, Stützle, Claude Giroux, and Jake Sanderson, there's missing a spot, right?
Well, look, here they have Brady Kachuk, Patterson, Stützle, Norris, and Sanderson.
I think.
Right. To me, Norris is not starting the year. I mean, but who knows?
But that's what I'm saying. This is a signing, all because they are unsure about Josh Norris' health.
Look, at the end of the day, Stützle was injured last year. Norris missed a bunch of time. Pinto missed half a year. So anytime you're telling me that 3 of your top players, other than Brady Kachuk, obviously, 3 of your top other players are missing all this time, I don't foresee you being very good. And I think that played a big role in Ottawa losing. Obviously, another problem, they already missed all these players, plus they had the worst goaltending in the league. Korpisalo was absolutely abysmal. Worst expected goals for out of all the...
Who did they have before Korpisalo?
Forsberg.
Well, no, Forsberg is still there.
No, but who did they... Before getting Korpisalo, they had someone who also wasn't good. I mean, goaltending is not just the only issue, right?
No, it's not. But Ullmark is going to help. And if they...
Should.
If Stützle is healthy, if Pinto doesn't miss time, if Norris doesn't miss time... I think that they do have an absolute chance to make the playoffs. Now, they're in the same boat as Buffalo and Detroit. And all 3 of these teams that are all in the Atlantic believe that their rebuild is over and they should be competing. And none of them are making the playoffs. So, David Perron, does he really help? I don't know if he really helps. But when it comes to power play efficiency, last year... I'm just looking here. Ottawa ranked 23rd in the league in power play efficiency at 18%.
Yeah, but with those injuries, it's a normal percentage.
Now you add Perron, you're hoping that that's going to increase to at least average power play, like a nice 13 to 16%, ranking. And just by that, it might be enough with Ullmark and Nets to sneak into the playoffs. We'll see.
Next, Anthony Duclair, 4 years, $3.5 million with the New York Islanders. I know we're very hesitant always when someone signs with the Islanders because they're known for their non-offensive.
I like this a lot. I'll tell you why. Who did Duclair play with in the juniors? In the Q? The Quebec Ramparts. Who was his coach? Patrick Roy.
That's right.
So he already has the coach's confidence.
If anybody knows his player.
Right. And he's coming off a good second half with Tampa Bay, 15 points in 17 games. Look, they need offense. So Patrick Roy is going to put him where he can succeed. And I don't think he's going to worry so much about the defensive structure. I think he's just going to be like, look, we need to score more goals. You're going to play with, right now, maybe Horvat and Barzal, maybe. I think it's a great fit. And at $3.5 million in cap leagues, I think it's something very affordable, especially as a depth player. So I like Duclair a lot going into next season.
And he's young. He's still 28 years old, right? So listen, I like the signing. Any player that signs with the Islanders that has some offense, to me, is a welcome because they need it. And I feel that whole but the Islanders are very defensive. With Patrick Roy, I feel he's gonna bring in a new system that's gonna help.
I think you said exactly what I was gonna say. Is that I think Patrick Roy is going to bring in a system that provides more offense while still being defensively sound.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm expecting a big bounce back. I'm expecting another 80-point performance by Barzal and Horvat.
For a second, I thought you would have said Duclair. I was like, whoa, I like him, but not that much.
No. Barzal hitting 80 points. I'm expecting that again under Patrick Roy. I'm also expecting
Horvat?
No, goaltending.
Sorokin
to be a little bit better as well. Even though he had a great year last year, he did kind of falter at the end. It was a lot of games played, first time in his career. So
he lost some games to Varlamov.
Yeah. Now, talking about goaltending.
Wait, we missed a player, Nick. I think it's an important player. Elias Lindholm from Boston. Right before Gothenburg. Elias Lindholm, 7 years, 7.75 million.
Oh, you ruined my segue.
I know, I'm sorry, but we can all agree he had a shit season last year, wherever he went. So Boston gave him all this money. Is he the number one center now in Boston?
Who wants to walk with Elias?
There you go.
Elias Lindholm does become the number one center in Boston automatically. That improves Brad Marchand's point totals because he didn't play with any centers last year. Charlie Coyle being his
I was going to say, do you value Lindholm more than Charlie Coyle?
Yes.
Yeah. At least at the beginning, I tried it. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, he fits their system perfectly. Points wise, we'll see how much he produces. But they were saying how I forget who the reporter was, but a lot of Edmonton players reached out to him and said, "Thank God we're not playing against him. He was one of the hardest players to play against." So Vancouver lost it. It's a big piece. Now, would I pay him 7.75 for like 50 points? I don't think so. You guys think he'll get more than 50?
I don't know if he'll get more than 50. I think so. If playing with Pasternak and Brad Marchand on the same line, I think he has the ability to get 60 at least, if not 70.
And he's getting first line.
But what I'm going to tell you is that his value is not only there for Boston. His value is also his defensive acumen. And who had defensive acumen in Boston prior to Elias Lindholm as a center?
Patrice Bergeron.
So if you're getting somebody, you're not getting Patrice Bergeron necessarily, but if you're getting somebody that could play to that level or a little bit less than that level, you're still winning in Boston. It's a big win. This is a big signing.
I think Boston realized they couldn't go forward with Coyle and Zaka as their centers. So listen, this is a big signing. I think he can easily hit the 65 to 70 points this year with the players.
So 2023-2024, his total was 44 points in 75 games. That's a mix of Calgary and Vancouver. Hey, Vancouver, he didn't play with no slouches, eh? He was given an opportunity with Pedersen.
Yeah,
he was given an opportunity on the power play, and he only got 12 points in 26 games. Then prior to that in Calgary, he had 64 points.
In 80 games, playing with Gujo Kachuk. 82 points, playing with Gujo Kachuk. 47 points in 56 games played. Gujo Kachuk. So you put him with good players, he'll play.
Yeah, he'll put up points.
Guys, don't tell me he wasn't with good players of Vancouver.
It's a new team.
Boston's gonna be a new team.
Yeah, but he's there for 7 years.
But he's there for 7 years. We're not talking about just a rental.
Yeah, but he's not 26 anymore.
He's 29. It's 27 to 31 is your prime in the NHL.
I'm not jumping on this bandwagon, especially not in the cap league.
Nick, back to your segue.
Well, the segue is finished now, but I was going to talk
Actually,
about.
it's going to be good for Swayman, which is a good segue.
You tried. I like it. So Vegas, guys, Vegas didn't do much except they added goaltending, and it's funny because Hill,
How many goaltenders do they have now?
quite a few. Hill is basically their number one goalie, but they added Ilya Samsonov, 1 year, 1.8 million, 27 years old in Vegas, and they added Akira Schmid, 2 times 875. Now Akira Schmid is going to go straight to the AHL affiliate. Ilya Samsonov is probably going to be the backup. I'm looking at this team. Does this hurt Aiden Hill's value?
Well, no, he's the absolute number one goalie.
What hurts his value is if his injury factor, his injury risk.
If he's 1A, 1B,
He needs to stay healthy and he'll be okay. Right?
Right. I don't think, but I still see Samsonov stealing starts. I see this as a 50-50 split.
I like Samsonov as a depth goalie heading into a fantasy league for sure. For sure. With the risk factors that we have with Hill, plus he's on a pretty decently structured team. I like his fantasy value at 1.8 as a depth goalie. If you need like a third goalie just in case, I like it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
And can we, you know how we talk about young players and like, is it time for them? Is this the time? Alexander Holtz, is this his chance, his last chance to see if he can crack it in the NHL?
He's still very young to say last chance, but it's not. It's a little bit of an indictment on his game. And we kind of spoke about it during the draft about the Cole Isermans, the Bellows, the Wallstroms, the Zadinas that have a lot of this offensive skill set, but they just can't play an all-around game in the NHL, and it kind of hurts their value. Now, Holtz was traded to Vegas. I can't even remember what the trade was.
I think it was the Thompson trade, no? Akira Schmid, Thompson, wasn't it all part of the same?
Yeah, that's right.
yes.
That's right. Thompson and Akira Schmid for Holtz.
And Cotter, I think, was the young guy from Vegas going back.
So Holtz has another chance here.
So New Jersey has 3 goalies: Logan Thompson, Allen, and Markstrom.
Maybe,
Sorry.
maybe I
Who are you talking about?
New Jersey, because Logan Thompson went to New Jersey, didn't he?
Yes, Logan Thompson.
So New
No.
Jersey.
No, I think
No.
I'm mistaken. Two
No,
different
no.
trades.
Okay.
Sorry.
No. Logan Thompson
Capitals
went to the
acquired Logan
Capitals.
Thompson.
Okay, perfect.
And Logan Thompson's going to be splitting time
With-
in the Capital system with
Lindgren.
Lindgren.
Yeah.
So, which I don't know why, but I feel like Logan Thompson's going to win the starting job there.
Yeah.
It was for a 3rd round pick.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, next, our good friend Tyler Toffoli goes back to California. 4 times $6 million to San Jose. Is this just I need to reach the bottom of the cap for San Jose?
No, I think that there's more to it than that. I see that Toffoli will play most likely with Celebrini.
Mm-hmm.
And
What did Toffoli do really well in Montreal?
Score.
No.
he was clutch, scored, and he played short-handed as well.
And he played very well with the young players.
Yeah,
He mentored a lot of the young
he was
players.
a good complement to them. Yeah,
A lot of the young players would look up to him and invited him to all their events because we follow them all on Instagram, so we know. Celebrini is going to end up playing with Toffoli. He's going to be a great mentor to teach him the game. And at the same time, it's about time Toffoli kind of gets paid. He always had low salaries. He's getting 4 times 6 right now to be that mentor, to be that best friend to Celebrini. I love it. I think it's a great signing. Fantasy-wise, do I think that he's going to do great? I think that his value actually will increase where it is right now in San Jose because I think he's going to get the opportunity to play top 6 minutes and with Celebrini and probably Eklund or something like that. So top power play is possible. We'll see.
yeah, I like it. I mean, like you said, to your point, he's playing with young guys. He has experience playing with young guys. Has succeeded with young guys. He's one of those players that no matter where you put him, he produces. He's been team to team, and he's always found a way to produce. He had 33 goals last year and 22 assists, 55 points in 79 games. I think that's where he live between the 50 and the 60 point range. and he's in a no pressure state. I mean, they're not expecting big
He's
things.
not going to get benched if he doesn't skate back hard defensively. That's the thing, right? So I think which I'm not suggesting that Toffoli does, because like Nick said, he's a very good example for the younger guys. But I mean, there's no pressure of making the playoffs and stuff like that, right? So you're playing more loose. It's easier to play hockey.
Is there any fantasy value for Alex Wenberg? He's probably going to be the third line center in San Jose.
The next two, I don't think there's any fancy value. Alex Wenberg and Matt Grizzlick, who signed a 1 year, 2.75 for Pittsburgh. I mean, how fantasy wise can that be? You have Carlson, you have Letang, you have Pickering who wants to make the team. So I don't think any of these two guys have any fantasy value at this point.
So let's move on then straight to Jonathan Drouin. 1 times 2.5 to stay in Colorado.
Listen, I feel last year he had a decent season with Colorado. What did he get? He got
56 points.
56 points. It was his first year. I think you can have a bit more this year, since it's the second year. He's familiar with the team, the players, and all that. So listen, he went in there, no pressure, no worries. He knew McKinnon, Rantanen were the guys, and that power play is his specialty. And I mean, when you play with McKinnon, Rantanen on the power play, I mean, I think we can get a few points off of that power play. And I can't even skate.
If he reaches 60 points, I mean, is a 60-point player relevant in your league? If he is, then sure.
In a dynasty, it's very relevant, don't you think?
Well, in a cap league, I think that he's more relevant. But like, I have dynasty leagues where 60-point players are waiver wire guys. They're not. They don't put up enough points to even merit being drafted.
Depending on how many guys you guys draft per team.
That's right. So his career best is 56 points, and that was last year. So
Look, in deep leagues, he's valuable.
In deeper leagues,
deeper
especially
leagues, he's
salary
valuable.
cap leagues, like I said, he's valuable. But further than that, I wouldn't go crazy.
Look, first and foremost, if he stays mentally healthy, which
he did last
we
year.
we wish him. If he continues off that, and his wrists are doing much better, because that was a big injury he had with the Canadians, he can continue where he was for sure.
Jake DeBrusk, 7 years, 5.5 million. Vancouver Canucks.
I love this one. I absolutely love this fit.
I think the 7 years is very fair. He's 27 years old. He's going to be 32 at the end of the contract. 5.5. That's not a bad price for a top 6 player. That even if he's playing second line minutes, 5.5 million is not bad at all. Last year, Jake DeBrusk ended up with 40 points on the Boston Bruins team. The year before that, 50. So he might not be the most point-producing player. So 5.5 million, you got to see whether it's valuable for you. If he's a 50-point player, is it valuable for you?
Listen,
At that point, you're making Drouin look great.
Listen, 27 years old, so he's hitting his prime, right? This is the time to hit his prime. I like the contract. The first year, can expectations be too high? New team, new teammates, new city. So we know usually when that move is made, players have a hard time adjusting the first few years, the first year especially. But listen, I like the contract. Listen, some of these signings made me rethink my whole team in LPHL. Like, I was dropping Bertuzzi, I was dropping DeBrusk. I mean, and I'm in a rebuilding phase, but I still, now, these guys, I have to keep them because they could be trade bait for me during the season because they landed in very good spots. So to me, I like the contract at 5.5, even for a dynasty league. But I with DeBrusk, I think you need to be patient. If you see in the first few games he's not producing, it's just adapting to a new team. So that's the way I see it.
All right, the next one is Oliver Ekman-Larsson, 4 times 3.5 million.
No fantasy value.
In Toronto.
No fantasy value.
32 years old.
No fantasy value whatsoever.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if he steals power play 1.
Wow.
Well, Toronto had didn't have a great power play.
Are you sure about that?
I'm pretty sure Toronto, for the most part, struggled throughout the year on their power play, especially in the second half.
They were
of the season.
7th in the league in power play, 24%.
Oh, and was it in the playoffs then?
I mean, you have
In the playoffs, they struggled.
In the
I think
playoffs.
you're confusing
yeah,
playoffs
it was the
and regular
playoffs. It was the playoffs. Regardless, I mean, it's very doable. Look, he took over for Montour for the most part in Florida in the second half of the season.
Frosling took over from Montour in Florida.
At 3.
Not on the power play.
At 3.5, look, Ekman Larson was a very valuable player for Florida last year. At 3.5 million, defensemen are, and especially defensemen that put up 30 points. It's not much.
No.
30 points is not much, guys. 3.5 million. Is he someone I target in my leagues? Maybe not. He seems a little bit of a waiver wire guy for me.
Look, if Morgan Riley gets hurt,
If you're
misses
telling
some
me,
time,
yeah.
then yes,
If
he's
you're
a
telling me
waiver
he's
wire
going to put
pickup.
up 35 to 40 points in Toronto, 40 points in Toronto, Ekman Larson, I'll take him at 3.5 million.
Well, the reason I like
But
this for Toronto is
he
that
was in Florida and he only got 30.
yeah, from a fantasy perspective, I look, it's not a big deal. But I like it for Toronto because they were lacking a bit of mobility and like someone who could
Puck
handle
moving.
the puck from the back end to help create a bit of offense, and he's going to bring that.
Toronto, I think, solved that problem this year with even signing Tanev in their defense. They knew they had a problem in the back end, and they're trying to.
Well, I mean, Tanev is very familiar with
Tree Living.
Tree Living, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, Tanev, I'm not saying Tanev's getting, but Tanev can make a pass from here to there on the stick, which last year they had maybe O'Reilly who could do that. You know? So they added 2 more players that can actually make a pass out of their zone.
Yes, I agree with that.
So
Tanev is good at his first pass. He has
Yes.
no real offense to him, but to
but
break
he's there
out of
to-
the zone, he
he's
could
there
do
to
it.
protect Morgan Riley, right?
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Ekman Larson might be the number 2 power play guy, and if he
Yeah.
is, you know,
He'll never see the
points,
ice.
35 points wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility if he's the number 2
Power play 2 in
guy.
Toronto doesn't see the ice though much.
No, not much, no. All right, and let's finish off with 2 more. Vladimir Tarasenko, 32 years old, signs in Detroit for 2 years, $4.75 million.
Ship has sailed.
I-
Ship has sailed with Tarasenko.
I'm
guys.
sorry, listener Umbi. I know that Tarasenko was your guy, but
People fall in love with a name, and because they were great, they think by going to better teams that they're going to be better. It doesn't always work out that way. He was good for Florida in the way that they needed him to be good.
55 points last year between Ottawa and Florida.
Right? Fantasy wise, it's not massive, right? We just spoke about 3-4 players
for
that
his
had the
salary?
same fantasy.
For-
Well, look, we just spoke of DeBrusque 5.5, 50 to 60
Drouin
range.
had the same points
Drouin.
at 2.4.
So like, I honestly I don't see it. And for Detroit, I hate the move because they just keep doing the same things. They got rid of Perron, they added Tarasenko. Like, you're not improving your team. You keep staying status quo, and I don't know how much longer the fans are.
Well,
gonna
I think Detroit is really banking on progression.
Yeah.
Edvidson is coming up. This year, he should have a bigger role. Moritz Seider has kind of fallen into that shutdown defenseman role. His offense kind of seems to have dwindled after his rookie season. Moritz Seider.
Yeah, but with Detroit, is this the year Costa starts playing with them?
No. Costa is still, I think, way too young.
I know, but
they have so many goalies, Vince.
you have Leon and Talbot, and
They signed
Husso.
Campbell. They have Husso.
My God, they're
They have so many goalies.
10
Yeah,
goalies.
Costa's not going to see.
Okay.
the
Costa's not
NHL.
seeing the
No,
time of day.
because I saw here Leon and Talbot. I'm like, so if you're looking for goalies, do not draft
Yeah.
any of Detroit goalies because you have no idea who's playing.
Actually,
Yeah.
while we're on it, Gostisbehere had a great season last year for Detroit.
He did. He had.
Who did they replace Gostisbehere with? Eric Gustafsson, another journeyman, one-dimensional offensive player. Is that someone you target for points-wise in your fantasy league?
Wow,
Cheap contract, and he's gonna get. Look, he's projected power play 1.
If he plays on this power play with Patrick Kane, Larkin, Raymond, and DeBrincat, 100%.
Like, if Gostisbehere could take over Sider's spot on PP1, maybe Gustafsson can too.
I still think you give it to Seider.
I
or
mean, I would assume you give him the chance first.
You guys have to watch Camp because Camp is going to show a lot of
Yeah, like
how this is
like
gonna
now
go.
we're on
Edvidson could come in
Yeah.
and just take over all
yeah,
of that
we're
spot,
on daily
right?
face-off, so we're looking at lineups on daily face-off. But
Projected, right?
yeah, project the
Projected.
lineup because we don't know who's making team yet, who's not making team, and stuff like that.
Who they're trying to trade for.
more at the beginning of the season, more we'll get to know who we think could be better off with it.
Okay, last signing in Carolina here. And that signing is Jack Roslovich, 1 times $2.8 million. Any fantasy relevance?
No.
I don't see it. I don't see it.
I feel like Roslovich is turning into one of these journeyman right wings, right? Like last year,
If they trade Nekash,
he only had like
he might take over line 2, but I don't know.
his career season was 45 points.
Is it Nekash or Natchez?
Natchez.
Natchez. If they trade Natchez, he might take over right wing 2.
Guys, 45 points is his career year. I don't think it's fantasy relevant.
No.
Yeah, people are banking on his early success, but for me that ship has also sailed as well.
Yeah.
I think that does it for our free agency roundup, guys, and probably for the episode.
Yes, I think so too. I think our recap, if we miss somebody, it's probably because we don't think they're fantasy relevant. So please make sure that you comment on the YouTube channel and rip us if we miss somebody.
Or Rip Junior, because
Just Rip Junior. He's the one that did all this.
Oh, the light's back.
Hey, the light is back.
Just for the ending.
All right, we're gonna get this light to work properly. I swear.
Yeah. Guys, please continue commenting on our videos, watching our videos. We enjoy if we see interesting comments. Obviously, we'll bring it up on the podcast. We love the discussions that are going on. We're big boys. We can take some how to say it? Criticism.
All in good fun.
Exactly. As long as it's like your teacher said, as long as it's constructive criticism. But feel free to follow us on X at Partial Breakaway Pod. Follow us on Instagram at Partial Break Pod. Listen, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify. So listen.
TikTok.
Shout out to Cap Friendly, which I used right before they shut down in order to get all this information. End of an era. We use Daily Face Off as well. NHL stats as well.
I just want to add, if you're going to go ahead and watch us on YouTube, just subscribe.
Yeah,
Give us a
throw
shout
like-
out and subscribe. Follow us. And shout out to Sportiera for our gear here.
Yeah.
Sportiera.com for any more information.
We had 1,000, or I think we hit over 2,000
2,000 views on the Demidov reaction.
on the Demidov reaction, and we got to get those likes a little bit higher up.
Yeah, likes and subscribe, everybody. Nick,
And-
you got to put it on.
And
the
we're
thing
on
there.
TikTok.